All right, he's an American living in Israel who has topped the Forbes list of Israel's Midas touch and considered one of the 25 best venture capitalists in Europe. Joining us live is Michael Eisenberg talking about the future of the startup nation. Hello, Michael.
Thank you, Emily. Good to be
New York
here.
in the house.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've lived there.
Yeah, when did you move here? How long
24 years ago, 1993.
Wow, what made you make the jump? You must have been like 12 years old or very young.
I wish I was 12 years old. But after my freshman year of college, I spent what was one gap year and then a second gap year in Israel. And I got inspired by a rabbi named Rabbi Yehuda Amital to move to Israel and try to create 10,000 jobs. And that's kind of been my life goal ever since.
Wow. Well,
I went back and finished college, but then came back.
Okay, good boy. You're a good American.
Thank you.
You got parents like, finish school, right? So, you know, like you were one of the first people to really, you know, take a chance. What is it that you knew even then originally when you started that, like, it was a good bet to bet on Israeli startups?
I knew
Besides
nothing.
The obvious.
I knew nothing. I was desperate. I was unemployed and couldn't find a job, so I knew something.
Like many of us in Israel, it's very hard.
And in 1994 or so, this new thing, the internet, came out. And I knew a little bit about it from college, but there are very few people here who did. And I got involved very early on in an online photo sharing app. It wasn't an app then, sorry, online photo sharing site. They were cameras with real film in them then, and they digitized them and uploaded them to this thing called the internet and shared them with grandma called Picture Vision, and that turned out to be very successful. So I was just lucky.
Do people, I mean, it's funny because people, you look back, you know, and, you know, the visionaries who think about it, like people really kind of didn't believe in the internet, thought it was like crazy and like pipe dreams. Like, did you know it was going to be the future, or you just took the chance?
We were ridiculed early on. You know, you just upload pictures, digitize them, send them to grandma, and to fund these things. Remember, in the early days of the Israeli tech scene in 1994, 95, there was like $100 million running around the country. People had been laid off from the Lavi fighter project. It was really the beginning of the industry. So I was more young and dumb than I think visionary at the time.
Well, that's good. Young and dumb is good. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
Timing is everything.
You've got the Midas touch. I mean, how cool is that to be recognized by Forbes?
You know, I really wish they'd have a list, as Adam Newman, the CEO of WeWork, says, that talks about the people who gave back the most rather than those who have a Midas touch from having successful businesses. Right. I think that's far more important.
You know, I actually know Adam, you know, and his wife from New York. I mean, did you know him personally? Were you one of the original investors? Like, I remember when he was like, had this idea and no one knew what it was. And like, this was only like 5 years ago. And now look at him. Yeah,
so I was actually in the lobby of the David Intercontinental Hotel, and Saul Singer and a guy named Ben Struner and a few others had said, the two of you should really talk. And I picked up the phone to call him, and I was supposed to be home, and the conversation was so interesting, it went on for 2 hours. I was plugged into a socket in the Intercontinental Hotel, and I said, don't take any money from anyone. I'm coming to New York. And I got on a plane about 7 days later, went to New York, and Adam and I hit it off right away. But it was unconventional as a venture fund to back a business that everyone conceived of as a real estate business, which it isn't. It's a community business and a platform that makes people more successful in their small and large businesses, because corporate culture has gotten so boring. This is kind of livened it up and, like I said, empowered people to create a community and become more successful. And when we made the first $17 million investment in WeWork, you know, you held your breath like you do in every one of these businesses, because venture capital is a very risky business. We lose half of our investments, basically. Right. And but Adam is just such a remarkable guy and has incredible vision.
He really honestly is a nice guy.
Yeah.
He really is a nice guy. So, you know, your company, like, overall, I'm seeing the numbers. Like, you've invested, like, over $300 million. And how many companies? 17 different companies. How do you make your decisions as to which one, you know, you think is going to go the distance versus, you know, Israelis that are like, I have a startup, but, you know, what really has legs?
Well, isn't it amazing that everybody here thinks they're an entrepreneur?
Yeah, of course.
We should just acknowledge that that's an amazing thing.
First of all, I'm not going to bash Israelis, but they don't want to work for anybody else. I mean, that's part of it.
Well, isn't that great? in the economy,
like, Americans, we're used to, like, punching in and, like, having a boss and a this and a that and having job security and all those
But
things.
the 21st century doesn't have a lot of job security, because big companies are downsizing and technology is replacing a lot of jobs, and we're losing factories in places where there's high costs of labor. So actually being entrepreneurial and being independent is an incredible value in the 21st century.
Right.
And I think Israel has that in spades, and it's why our economy is actually doing incredibly well on an absolute basis and on a relative basis to the rest of the world. And we're actually exporting this kind of Israeli independence and entrepreneurship. When you think about WeWork, it's like a 21st century kibbutz that empowers people to be independent, become independently successful, and build their own independent business. The days of working in kind of this Dilbert corporate culture are over in the 21st century, and I think Israel's a big part of that.
Do you think, I mean, listen, I mean, like, you know, things keep churning out of Israel. I mean, do you think that there's kind of like, you talk Bitcoin. Is it a bubble that's going to burst? I mean, what is the future, you think, of the startups here?
Oh, I don't know. I think Israelis, well, here's what we have going for us. We're really innovative. We know how to hop on the latest trends, and we have incredible technology people that come out of the military here. Bitcoin or blockchain, as you mentioned it, is just a kind of a derivative almost of our security expertise, and that's why there are so many Israelis engaged in it. There was a couple meetups last week, one at Microsoft and one at Samsung, 500 people there. I have no idea whether Bitcoin's a bubble or not. I try not to predict these things, but you can assume that great technologies will come out of Israel. Here's the most remarkable thing.
But even with the Bitcoin, I mean, it's like also about the blockchain. I mean, Bitcoin is what everyone is wanting to make, fast million or $1 billion. But like, is there legs, do you feel, in the blockchain and where it's going, kind of like where the internet
So we have an investment in a company called Kolu, which is actually right down the block here, which is a blockchain business in which you can build your own local currency. And there's the local Tel Aviv currency, there's a local Haifa currency, there's a Liverpool currency, and an East London currency on top of it. What's going on in Tel Aviv is stunning. You walk into shops up and down Tel Aviv Yafo, they accept
all
Kolu.
these marquees instead of Pinkberry. It's like blockchain things.
You got the Kolu sign, and you can pay with your local currency. So this will be a big deal here, and because it's a small country, word spreads. But even things like, automotive. If I asked you, where's the automotive industry, you would have told me Japan, Germany, and Detroit. And today, it's Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And the reason is because oil's turning into data. And electrification of the grid is replacing large parts of the engine in the car, and we can do that all here in Israel. And so more and more industries will get disrupted here. Everything from insurance, company we're invested in called Lemonade, to automotive, which has got all these software companies driving cars right now, and it's a remarkable time to be here.
Right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I see why you succeeded. You have a winning personality.
Well, that's very